Hey guys, thanks for coming and joining me for this. I really appreciate it. Jim Nastic here from True North Fantasy Football. You can find me on Twitter at Gold Jacket QBs and follow all my content with at True North FFB. Follow all the guys there too. We got a pretty good team going on right now. We're building some pretty good things for the future. I'm pretty excited about it. Looking forward to the future. I also dropped a podcast recently too, just six episodes deep. If you guys can check that out, that'd be pretty cool too. Episode 7 will be coming out tomorrow, as long as I get the editing done tonight. But with that said, let's jump into some questions here. Let's look at the first question. Was in Dynasty Startups, do I tend to load up more on wide receivers than RBs given their average career length, fantasy relevance, or do I find the best available is still the correct approach? Uh, and then at the same time, if the startup drafts are separate from rookies and vets, yeah, it's usually the same. If it's rookies or vets, I just find I actually prefer rookies to be mixed in there with the vets. I find I get a little bit more value with the rookie fever there. Rookies separate, you know, uh, you just you don't get as much value with the veterans if they're separate. But either way, I look to hammer quarterbacks and then running backs because I draft running backs. I trade for sophomore wide receivers that have disappointed when people expect them to produce right away, aka like Nikhil Harry. He's a pretty solid buy for me this year because of his depleted value, considering he was going anywhere between 102 and 104 last year in rookie drafts. So yeah, I usually wait on the wide receivers, draft a little later on guys, especially in rookie and vets together. I'll take guys like Darius Slayton with a depressed ADP. Marvin Jones Jr. is a perfect stopgap. I've been saying as a veteran wide receiver, if you do want to get those guys like Laviska Shenault or T. Higgins and or Denzel Mims, who we wrote about a little earlier, and because you got to expect not every rookie wide receiver is going to hit all the time, and they're not going to hit early. So a guy like Marvin Jones is a pretty good stopgap while you wait for him for 2020, right? Like he's a good wide receiver too. While you wait to see if those rookies pan out. So no, I usually to answer that, I always hit best available, and best available to me is usually the running back because you can get immediate trade value back on them the following year as where rookies or wide receivers, if they don't pan out, which is more likely, they you'll get no return value on them or less return value on them. We've heard others say that the Miami backfield is quote gross. With the acquisition of Breida, do you agree more with that sentiment than your article praising Jordan Howard originally did? Or do you still think his long-term relevancy is better, load management incoming in this situation, and thus a better buy? Uh, yeah, when I wrote that article on Jordan Howard, Matt Breida wasn't there, and I did praise Jordan Howard pretty heavily because he's a 25-year-old pounding back that can that well, I mean, he's not a pass catching back, but he doesn't have stone hands either. He doesn't duck when passes are being thrown his way, a la Kalen Ballage. But what actually shocked me was San Francisco having so many running backs, letting who I actually thought was the best one on the roster go in Matt Breida. I thought this entire time with San Francisco bringing in Tevin Coleman and Raheem Mostert and all these other guys, I was screaming from the tops of buildings saying like the guy that they need is already on the roster in Matt Breida. And so yeah, I'm a little scared, but I can see them working as a good one too. I can still see Jordan Howard getting those goal line touches. Now it's just a matter of has the Miami offense improved enough to equate so many touches in that red zone, which I'm not really 100% sure of. because if it's Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing up YOLO balls because he doesn't really care, uh, I don't see them being in the red zone as much. I see their touchdowns being deeper throws if it's Fitz tragic or Fitz magic, depending on which version comes out. I do like him as a fantasy quarterback though in the late rounds. Fitz magic. So I don't think he's a better buy though. Actually, I'm a little scared off of him. Uh, so yeah. To answer that question, I'm a little lower than I was when I wrote the article about him, but we'll see what his ADP is in August, and if I'm really going to hit the hammer on him. MT only catches slants. Do you have a late QB you like to have a breakout season? Aiken to Mahomes 2 years ago, and Lamar last year. So far, I've heard Baker, Fitz, and Teddy as answers to that question. As a late round QB, yeah, Fitz, yeah, Fitz is funny because I was just talking about him. Yeah, Fitz does fit the mold. Teddy two gloves too, but not as a mold of a Mahomes or a Lamar. Like you guys got to realize, what you're seeing isn't typical with those two that came out back to back years. Like we're spoiled as football fans to see that come out 2 years in a row. Don't expect it to happen this year. If it like everyone's expecting the Kyler Murray, but he's no longer a late round guy. The guy I actually think for a later round QB, who if I pull up the LF ADP here real quick for quarterbacks and super flex would be I think he is quarterback 24. No, it's 23. It is Teddy Bridgewater, but the other guy I really like, quarterback 31, Jared Stidham. Now, I'm not saying he's going to have a breakout year a la Pat Mahomes where he's throwing 50 touchdowns or the durability or the dual threat capability like a Lamar Jackson. But what I am saying is if he can hold on to that job, I do see him cracking top 12 to 15 quarterback finish on the year. And as a quarterback 31, that is an ADP that is definitely going to pay off. So to answer that question, a late round quarterback that I've been taking shots on is Jared Stidham. If you wanted another one, you could probably go with Nick Foles. I think he's a quarterback that's gonna win that job against Trubisky. He's going as a quarterback 35 in DLF ADP. So I mean, there's people that don't even have jobs that are going ahead of him, like Cam Newton, backup Jameis Winston, and backup Jordan Love are all going ahead of Nick Foles. So there's another dart throw if you want to go. But I've been grabbing Jarrett Stidham late. I like it. I'll roll with him, especially as a QB2 in Superflex. But to answer your question, I don't think you're going to get a Mahomes breakout or a Lamar breakout. But for a quarterback to smash his ADP, Fitz, Stidham, and Foles would be my three to go. Another question from you is Will Fuller going to put it all together this year? I actually have an article coming out in a couple days, maybe actually tomorrow. I'm not sure about wide receiver I like in the Texans offense, and it's not Will Fuller. No, I'm not. I don't think Will Fuller is going to put it all together this year. I don't think he's a true wide receiver one ever. He's a good complement piece, and I think that's all. That's all. I don't think he's going to put it together. Too many soft tissue injuries too with him. I don't really like it. I don't use the term injury prone either, but he does have a lot of relative injuries that seem to be connected. Do I like Hasty or McKinnon as a late dart throw? Rojo or Geis? I like Jermichael Hasty from the 49ers. Um, but I don't like him as a. I don't think you're gonna get significant fantasy relevance out of him. I think he could probably stay on the waiver wire, but if you're in a deep league, like a 25 roster league, 12 team or deeper, yeah, I don't see any reason why you're not taking a stab at him in round 24, round 25 at all. I'm off Geis because there seems to be too much. You got to pay too much for Geis. Um, that's just where I am on him. I like the talent. There's no discount considering he hasn't played or given you really any significant games so far in the NFL. So that's why I'm off him. I'm definitely scooping Rojo, but if I am grabbing Rojo, I have seen the strategy of pairing him with Keyshawn Vaughn, grabbing Vaughn earlier. So yeah, if you're going to take the dart throw on Rojo, I like it if I'm a Vaughn owner because I actually do think Rojo is going to hold him off in that job. To be honest with you, me and Connor just talked about the NFC South yesterday, and he brought up some pretty good facts on Rojo there, and the fact that the matter is that he's the same age as Keyshawn Vaughn, except he has NFL experience. Everyone says he's so bad, but really it wasn't all on him being bad. That has a lot to do with famous Jameis and negative game scripts and terrible offensive lines. So yeah, out of all those guys, I would take a late dart throw on Rojo. Out of all of them, 101 pick for you this year, non-super flex. Because I want immediate return on my running backs, and not because I think he is the RB1 out of this class. It's Jonathan Taylor. He's not my RB1 out of this class, but it's actually J.K. Dobbins. But for immediate production, I'll take Jonathan Taylor for the fact that I can probably get more in return for him about week 3, week 4 than what he's really worth. I've put together a ton of divisional coverage podcasts. One or two things that's going under the radar this year that we could use to our advantage. Example, soft schedules, draft certain players with intention to sell midseason, coaching schemes or changes. Look at vacated targets, I would say. It's a real reason why if I'm a championship contender, I'm perfectly fine with picking up Julio Jones and paying the price. There's over 200 vacated targets, and the wide receiver one's not gone. In Atlanta, a lot of people are really sleeping on that fact. But vacated targets is something that I really look into when trying to target sleeper picks. And that's another reason why I have that article coming out in a couple days about that Texans wide receiver is vacated targets, and it's not Will Fuller. Another sneaky thing that I like to look at is I like dome teams. I like Atlanta because of how many dome games they end up playing, and that's another thing that goes underutilized. I think when looking at fantasy rosters. How much value do rookie RBs like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, and DeAndre Swift have in redraft? Obviously, all are covered dynasty assets, but what's the redraft value? Too high is the redraft value. I'll be honest with you. Outside of Jonathan Taylor, I don't think any of these guys are taking a full workhorse load right out the gate. I think the Clydesdales having. I think Clydesdale is going to split some work with Damian Williams to start the year. I think Dobbins has a very capable Mark Ingram with him. I don't even think Cam Akers wins the job, and I think a lot of people are also discounting what Kerryon Johnson can do. So in redraft, I actually think they're all going too high. I don't have any of them in any redrafts because, again, the rookie fever is too high and they're not going to pay off. Space Force Ghost. And tagging onto that, what's your order for those 5 rookies Dynasty picks? So I kind of alluded to it before. My personal rankings are I got Dobbins, Hilaire, Taylor, Swift, and then Akers. But for immediate production value, I can see Taylor going over Dobbins. But like I said, it's Dynasty, and I think in 2021 he's going to be the one that you want to own. What players are you picking in the last rounds of your draft as potential sleeper picks? Quintez Cephas from Detroit. I'm picking him up. I'm stashing him on my taxi squad because the guy that I like out of Detroit, Marvin Jones Jr., next year is going to be a 31-year-old unrestricted free agent. And I think Quintez Cephas is going to step right up into there. Detroit was the only team in the NFL last year that had both had 2 wide receivers in the top 5 of red zone targets. So that's my guy that I'm picking up in the late rounds. Another guy, if you're in a tight end premium league, but you kind of got to wait on him a little bit, I would think would be Thaddeus Moss out of Washington, tight end. There is no competition there in the tight end position in Washington, so he could be a sneaky value. Do I favor IDP Dynasty leagues? Seems leagues are typically less tilted given the random runs on defensive players, and it makes a better field of competition when the ADP starts shooting all over the place. Assuming you're not a moron when it comes to both sides of the ball. I'm getting into a little bit more IDP leagues as this year unfolds. I really started getting into last year dabbling and blew my mind away some of the values you could get. Yeah, you're right. It is a little bit more well-rounded because of the defensive players. You can get actually great value on those defensive players if you look a little deeper into the ball. I personally, when it comes to IDP Dynasty leagues, I'm not actually going to lie. There's a couple guys I lean on in the Twitter community when making some picks, so I'm trying to get a little bit better on that because of really outside of the top 7 guys in the position. When it comes to deeper things in IDP, I'm a little swimming. I do a little bit of research, but not as much. So there's a couple guys that I lean on when it comes to the IDP. Can I trust Cole Kmet on my taxi squad, or is that a wasted spot with their 3 dozen tight ends? Yeah, you can trust him on your taxi squad because I don't think you're ever actually expecting to use your taxi squad in year 1. So yeah, why not? He was a top tight end coming out. I don't see his value dipping in 2021. I think if anything, it stays the same. So I can't imagine you're actually wasting a very valuable pick on him anyway. So yeah, I think he's definitely worth the spot on your taxi squad for sure. I noticed AJ Dillon was way down the rookie rankings. Those appear to be Travis's rankings. But do you know what his thoughts were when putting Dillon below even McFarland and Gibson? Yeah, actually, I do on that. Those were, I think, pre-draft rankings. I have to talk to him about his rankings now. I think they're actually being updated or might have been updated on the site. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, so yeah, he probably got that done either yesterday or today. Getting away from Dynasty and into redraft. Do you think any of the top ADP QBs per Fantasy Pros are worth an early pick? No, I don't. I don't. As much as I hammer the quarterback in Dynasty, ADPs and redraft, I don't. I'm totally a late round quarterback guy. I know it's gonna shock a lot of people to hear that in redraft because there's so much positional value to be had in redraft. Yeah, and you're in it to win it, right? Like Dynasty is a long term game. Redraft, it's one shot you're getting. That's it. So I'm late round QB on that. I don't think any of them are worth the dart throw or worth the early pick. No. If not, there's a stretch from QB 10 through QB 13, 14. Breeze, Wentz, Brady, Stafford, possibly Baker. depending on how you feel about him, where the value seems to be better. Which of those QBs would you target later and why? Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford because he is the depressed ADP. Number, if you're not going Stafford, maybe Wentz. But like I said, for me, it's Stafford. It's because he is a beast. He's got Kenny Golladay. He has Marvin Jones. Like I said, they did lead the NFL in having two wide receivers in the top 5 for red zone targets last year. And everyone before the back break, he was an Iron Man. So that's why I'm taking that quarterback. Especially, I said it's a redraft year and it's a win it year one. Michael Pittman has been severely climbing a lot of boards recently, especially mine. Mine too. Thank you. With the uncertainty of T.Y.'s health and Paris Campbell stepping up to the role, do you think Pittman has the potential to be a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3? Yeah, I actually think he has the potential to be a high-end wide receiver 2 to a mid-end, high to mid-end wide receiver 2. I don't think the wide receiver 3 is even entering the conversation. I think what he does and brings to the table really fits the wide receiver that Phillip Rivers is going to target into the most. And he's a beast, actually. I had him pretty high up in my rookie rankings. I think he was number 6 pre-draft coming in. So I technically, no, I don't think he has potential to be a low-end wide receiver 2, 3. I think he has a potential to be a high-end wide receiver 2 to a mid-end wide receiver 2. What are my favorite metrics and why is the answer Racer and Whopper? So my favorite metrics actually are market share numbers. Targets equal points, right? Opportunity equals points. So that is my favorite. Pre-draft coming in, it's college dominator rating and age adjusted production. Why is Miles Sanders so overhyped? Miles Sanders is getting hyped because you saw just a glimpse of what he could do at the back end of 2019 with Jordan Howard busted up finally and out of the way for him. That is why. That's why he's getting overhyped. Which I don't even really think he's getting overhyped unless you see him in like the back end of the first. Mid second, I'm happy with taking him, but first, I'm not. What can we do to hype Miles Sanders even more? I feel like I'm letting him down. Oh man, I guess you could take him in the back end of the first. Do you find age and injury risk often to be overvalued metrics in Dynasty? It depends on what your team construction is at the time. If you're think that you're in a win now mode, then I have no problem taking guys like Julio Jones because he is in the win now. If I'm in the rebuild, I don't want a guy like Julio Jones or Julian Edelman or Marvin Jones Jr. Any of those guys if I'm in a rebuild. Actually, Marvin Jones I do. Sorry, but like I don't want the Edelmans. I don't want older guys for if I'm in rebuilds. But if I'm in win now, then absolutely I want them, and I do think it is being overvalued by rookie fever, especially now, right? Like now is the time where you start flipping to build your roster for older guys if you just needed a few pieces, right? You start flipping those shiny new pieces. You're getting the reports out that Michael Pittman's running nice or Brandon Ayuk is working out with so and so, and these hype videos or hype pieces start going up. So this is where you start to flip your rookies for two aging vets that could definitely put you over the hill. Do I see Denzel Mims taking the wide receiver 2 role from Rashad Perriman later this season? So this made me kind of puzzled when I read this, Gurnals, because who do you have as the wide receiver 1 in the Jets is really what I'd want to see. So, yeah, I do see it. I do see Mims taking the wide receiver 2 role from whoever it is at some point in the season. I'm interested more now to see who you think their wide receiver 1 is. And I was actually talking to Angelo when he came on my pod, and we were talking and we discussed what do you think would actually be worse for Mims, uh, being the wide receiver one, seeing the coverage from like top safeties like Stefon Gilmore and losing, or losing the camp battle right off the bat to Brashad Perriman, who's bounced around the league a couple years. And even though he was a high draft pick, like Brashad Perriman was a first round pick who maybe finally put it together, but bounced around the league a couple years. What would be worse for his ego? And I said it was probably getting beat out by Brashad Perriman right out. But I actually think he does get beat out by Brashad Perriman to start. And I think Perriman is the one, and I think Mims is the two to start right off the bat with Crowder in the slot. Uh, Neymar Jr. Love the name, by the way. What do you think Nikhil Harry's value will be this season with Stidham as the QB? And do you think he'll take the spot of Edelman in the next 2 seasons? So I kind of alluded to that a little bit earlier with the late quarterback question, a little bit. So I am really high on Nikhil Harry. He is, like I said, a target of mine that I also alluded to when I draft running backs and then I trade for sophomore wide receivers. He is the wide receiver that I am targeting this year as the sophomore wide receiver that had a poor rookie season. So I think Nikhil Harry's value will be high end wide receiver two. Like I already said with Stidham, I think he'll be a high end QB two, and their ADPs are definitely going to pay off considering they're wider QB 31. And I'm not actually sure on Nikhil Harry. Let me just double check what his ADP is going on DLF, but I'm sure it's definitely going to pay off. Where is he? He is pretty low. Hold on. I don't even see him on here. Oh, wide receiver 43. Yeah, I definitely think he'll pay that off too. He's going behind guys like Denzel Mims, Henry Ruggs, Adam Thielen I like, but let's see who else is he going behind. Jalen Rager, Jerry Judy. No, yeah, I think he can pay that off. I definitely do. So yeah, I wide receiver. What was that? Wide receiver. Yeah, it's way too low. Yeah, wide receiver 43 and QB 31. I definitely think they're going to pay off their ADPs. Um, I like them. It's a sneaky stack that I've been getting. It's one of my second most known stacks is Stidham and Harry. My first is actually Daniel Jones and Darius Slayton. And yeah, I do think he's going to take the Edelman spot over the next 2 years. I actually hope he takes it over next year. How do I think the Denver backfield will pan out? Is Melvin Gordon really worth his ADP at 35? Is Lindsey too low in the mid 90s ADP? So is this super flex? Because when I was looking at that, those seemed a little high, or sorry, a little low. Because I have Melvin Gordon as running back 22 behind Le'Veon Bell, Leonard Fournette, and Gurley. I think Philip Lindsay's being disrespected a little bit. I definitely think he's gonna have some value, especially if you're getting him in the mid 90s of an ADP. That must be overall, but yeah, I definitely think. I don't know. I think Lindsay's worth it. I don't think Gordon is at 35, the 35th overall. Any love for Jalen Hurd, especially if reports from last season are true that the 49ers want him as a tight end, uh, wide receiver, quarterback, and running back. Uh, I did have love for Jalen Hurd pre-draft, but now that they've brought in Brandon Ayuk, it really has me a little bit concerned because San Francisco seems to be bringing in the same type of wide receiver. Uh, a lot of guys that can create for themselves after the catch. So I don't know if there is going to be room for Jalen in this offense. Is it time to buy low on Hollister, even though the Seahawks traded for Greg Olsen? No, there's other wide receiver or other tight ends that I'd be trying to inquire about other than Hollister. I'm not. It's not a knock on Hollister at all. I know he did look good in the limited amount of time that he had, but um, and it even if you're thinking about 2021 play, I still think there's better or better tight ends that you could be tossing darts at. To the Jonas Smith or Smith Jr. stuff like that. I don't trust any actual Seattle tight end, to be honest with you, either, because of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf being there. Who has the better fantasy season, Breida or Howard? Ugh. Since I don't think goal line touches and touchdowns are a sticky metric, and if it's PPR, it's got to be. If it's standard, I'd go Jordan Howard. Uh, Kenyon Drake, Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs seem to be going around the same area in mocks, 0.5 PPR. Who do you like more out of the three and why? I like out of the three, Josh Jacobs, because besides Lynn Bowden, he doesn't really have that much of a threat. I think behind him, he has the draft capital. He's shown that he can do it, and I hope Marcus Mariota wins that job, and I actually think Marcus is a better suited quarterback for the Josh Jacobs style. So Josh Jacobs is the one that I'm grabbing in 0.5 PPR. To answer that Dylan question, I've updated my rankings now and have them up as the RB8 right behind Vaughn and Moss. Those two offer more three down upside, and I question that Dylan will ever meaningful target volume, and Aaron Jones is so good in the red zone. I think he'll need time before getting, and I think he'll end up being the early down banger. So I'd have a committee even if Jones leaves. He won't be an outlier like Derrick Henry. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much for that answer, Travis. How does a potential Dalvin Cook holdout that we've been seeing ample evidence for affect where you should have taken Cook and Madison? It's actually funny. So I'm in a draft right now where it's actually pretty wild. You draft 5 different teams potentially, and then you can only draft players from those teams. So I have Minnesota, and I didn't have the monopoly on them. I have the monopoly on Seattle, and I took Dalvin Cook as my first round pick, and I got sniped on Alexander Madison later on in the draft. So I'm actually pretty upset about that with the holdout. I do think though, and if you were a very smart Dalvin Cook owner, you already had Alexander Madison on your team after you saw what he did last year. You did whatever you had to do to trade for him. You should have already prepared for this holdout. So that's what I would say. And if that Dalvin Cook owner didn't have Alexander Madison as a league contender or a league opponent, you should have already had him. Sorry, guys. Um, what's your opinion on Blake Jarwin with all the weapons the Cowboys have? Do you think he gets enough targets to be a valuable starter? Yes, I do. Uh, I do think, I do think there is enough targets to be a valuable starter. If you go back and listen to the NFC East breakdown that me and Connor did, he did a good job at highlighting that there is ample targets, even with those 3 Michael Gallup, CD Lamb, and um, Amari Cooper still being there. That there's still enough targets for like Jarwin to be fantasy relevant. So yeah, I do think Blake Jarwin is a definite good fantasy buy. Sorry about that, guys. Just had to check on something real quick. How do you feel about Bowden's role in the Raiders offense? Will he develop into a fantasy relevant player? Oh, absolutely he will. Lynn Bowden is a guy that you should be sneaking up on your rosters basically for 2 reasons. One, he's got the sneakiest designation on sleeper with the wide receiver / running back designation. So that's amazing. And two is the fact because of what has already come out of the Raiders camp saying that they're going to utilize him as a running back for the first year and get him comfortable in that offense before moving him into learning the wide receiver position. So what I envision happening is a lot of two back sets in the future, having Josh Jacobs and Lynn Bowden in the back and maybe motioning out Bowden depending on if it's a stacked box or not. And then um, running the option from there if it's going to be a pass play to Bowden or Brian Edwards, or if it's going to be a run play to Josh Jacobs. So yeah, I think he's actually going to be a very, very fantasy relevant player. Not necessarily fantasy football related, but does fantasy football have a large Canadian following, or are you guys considered the head dogs of the Northern Experience? Oh man. Um, I wish I could confidently say that we are, you know what? No, we're the head dogs of the True North experience. If you're looking for Canadian content, um, come to us. We got you covered, man. We got rankings. We got Dynasty. We're very excited to be announcing some things in the future coming along. We got an awesome editor in our buddy Joe. We're doing some charity leagues now with the Canadian National Best Ball Championship, where 100% of our entry fees are going to winners charity of choice. So yeah, we are the premier. Antonio Brown, what do we do? What do we do indeed? I'm not 100% sure on that. 25 round teams, I guess we could roster them. I mean, I'm hearing that some quarterbacks want him on the team. He does have talent. I non-football related though, man. Like in all honesty, like I hope he gets his act together 100%. Like it's beyond football with him. Like that just let's just hope he gets healthy first, right? How do I feel about Hunt? And if you like him, how high do you draft him? Redraft, OFC, half PPR. I love Hunt. I love his talent. I think it was pretty evident when he came back from suspension, what he could do with Nick Chubb there. He was he was the running back to own in Cleveland. Hold on a second, guys. Hi, honey. What's the matter? I love you too. Okay, one sec. Is Jonas Smith a breakout tight end this year? We have an expert in here from a different AMA. Have him as his tight end 6. Tight end 6. That's pretty high. I don't hate it, that's for sure. I think he has the talent. If you referenced, there's an article by Neil Dutton of RotoViz that has early uh, predictions for tight ends. And if you look back on his archive, I'm not exactly sure which article it is, but if you just Google search Neil Dutton and Jonnu Smith, rookie tight end, it should probably come up. His metrics out of that rookie tight end class, like he was the guy that should have broke out pretty early. So I like Johnny Smith. I don't like how he's creeping up in his ADP. I like Irv Smith Jr. He is the tight end that I think is going to break out this year, especially in tight end premium formats. Where I was talking with Overhyped Sleeper uh, about this, and I asked him which tight end did he think would be in between the 20s for Minnesota more often. Would it be Kyle Rudolph or Irv Smith? And we both agreed it would be Irv Smith. And since I don't agree that touchdowns are a sticky metric, I want the tight end that's going to be catching passes in between the 20s and breaking long runs for 40-yard bonuses. So my tight end sleeper breakout is Irv Smith Jr. And I have him as, it's going to actually kind of be funny, I have him as my dynasty, not saying he's going to produce these numbers for 2020, but I have him as my top end dynasty ranked tight end number 5 behind Kittle, Kelsey, Andrews, and Dallas Goedert. Those are the 4 that I want ahead of him in Dynasty. How do you think Mike McCarthy will handle the dynamic duo of Tony the Goat Pollard and Zeke Elliott? I like how you named Tony Pollard first. And what should we expect of Dak Prescott with the new weapons he has? And who do you think will score more points from Lamb, Cooper, Gallup, and Jarwin? Ooh, that is a tough one. So there's been a lot of talk about Mike McCarthy, and me myself included. I was part of this originally, where I thought, he's a heavy committee back, throw your dart throws at Tony Pollard. But the more I look at it, I'm more on Zeke Elliott, because Mike McCarthy's never had a back like Ezekiel Elliott. Let's look at the backs that he has had in the past, and none of them are even remotely close to Zeke. Zeke's shown that he can pass catch as well. I'm just trying to bring up something that I had on Zeke here. Just trying to bring it up. East. 1 second. I was trying to find it. Yeah, here it was. It was Zeke averages 1,300 plus rushing yards and 10 touchdowns a season. That's not all-purpose yards that I said. I said that was rushing yards. So that is over the course of his career. And I like Tony Pollard, but if Zeke had an injury, Tony is not stepping into that role. I'm sorry. He is a compliment back. I don't think he is a feature back. That's just what I think. Come sit on my lap, honey. That like I said, that's just me for that personal question. Are there non-standard scoring settings you feel improve the fantasy experience? Yeah, I do think there are some non-standard. I think long touchdown bonuses really expand it. Like I like the 40-yard touchdown bonus scores. I do. I also do like I'm in a crazy league where it's -2 for an interception for a quarterback, but it's -6 if that becomes a pick six. I also like that. Can Jack Doyle become a quality fantasy tight end? Ebron's out of the picture, and I think Rivers favors tight ends. I don't think Jack Doyle becomes a fantasy relevant tight end because I like Michael Pittman, which is kind of sad because I do like Jack Doyle as the tight end out of there. I liked him when Ebron was there, but I like Michael Pittman, and I like Naheem Himes and Jonathan Taylor out of that offense. I just don't think there's enough balls to go around to make Jack Doyle fantasy relevant, especially for the tight end position, guys. I think there's other tight ends that you could be targeting besides Jack Doyle. Chubb versus Mixon. Who do you want the most? I want Mixon, and I want Mixon because he's getting a first round draft pick back in a lineman that was out last year. He doesn't have, this is the biggest one, Kareem Hunt. Looking over his shoulder, right? He has beat up Rondy Anderson, Travion Williams, and a very capable Giovanni Bernard, but none of let's be honest, none of those guys are Kareem Hunt, and so that's why I'm taking Joe Mixon. Actually, I also do think that a little bit more of the run game will be shouldered on this offense with Joe Burrow, right? I think they're just going to try to ease him in a little bit. Chris Godwin or Mike Evans with the news that Bruce Arians is going to run heavy two tight end sets. I got Godwin. I had a debate after this with my co-host Connor off the air. I was taking Chris Godwin. He thinks Mike Evans, and I'm not trying to dispute anything that Mike Evans does. He brought up the fact that Mike Evans, has 1,000 yards receiving every time in the league, and I brought up the fact that I think it's going to be Chris Godwin because he's more of the type of wide receiver that I think will suit Tom Brady's style, and it's going to be Tom Brady making those decisions where he gets open fast But this was also based on the fact that I saw Godwin more playing in the slot, and Connor thinks that they're going to put Godwin back on the outside. Now, if they put Godwin back on the outside, I don't think that he's going to benefit as much, but that's yet to be seen. He has dominated in the slot, so I think Bruce would be naive to to switch him from there, and he gets open quick, and he does something that Mike Evans doesn't do, and that's create yards after the catch. After CMC, how would you rank the rest of the big four? Zeke, Saquon, and Kamara. Saquon, Kamara, and then Zeke is how I have it. I have it as Saquon because I mean, arguably he could be ahead of CMC. I wouldn't really fault anybody for having that argument with anybody, but I do have Kamara because I like the Saints offense a little more. Um, I like the Saints offense a little more with Alvin Kamara, and I liked what he did last year on basically essentially one leg. Um, and Mike McCarthy. So those are the reasons why I have it as CMC, Saquon, Kamara, and then Zeke. Are you in on the A-Rob hype this season? Plain, I've been in on the A-Rob hype before he had 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns. I've been riding that train. I feel like I, I feel like I'm the conductor. Oh yeah, I love him. Also, what's Josh Reynolds' value with Cooks in Houston this year? Um, I like Bobby Woods out of that offense, Arkham Chaos. What? Let's pull up what Josh Reynolds' ADP is though before I completely dismiss a guy that can. Let's just pull him up. Are we talking super flex? Are we talking super flex or one quarterback? Just um, I was thinking Dynasty 2 QB. So super flex. Okay, let's check out what Josh Reynolds' ADP is on Dynasty. DLF. Josh Reynolds. Sorry guys. I wasn't 100% prepared for the Josh Reynolds. Wide receiver 77. Wow. Um, behind guys like Kenny Stills. Oh no, ahead of Josh Reynolds as wide receiver 77. Uh, I'm still out on him because the guy that I'm really looking for in that offense is wide receiver 27 is Robert Woods. I think uh I think he's uh I think he's very undervalued. Is Robert Woods. Sorry, I like Josh Reynolds' talent, but I don't think there's enough there. I think everyone just thinks that the next wide receiver can slide in. Someone right here. What Ravens wide receiver will pay off long term? Hollywood, Boykin, or Duvernay? Um, I like Boykin. I really, really, really like Boykin. If you want to go take a look at his player profiler and get back, or I'll pull it up. I'm not sure if I can. Well, I'm not sure if I can pull that up. Let's see if I can pull that up and screenshot it for you there. Miles Boykin player profiler. Yeah, let's bring this up here. This is why I like Myles Blake. Hold on. Just trying to screenshot it for you guys and then show it up. Just a second. Oh, there it is. That's why I like Myles Boykin. Look at those stats. He is the type of wide receiver that you would typically grabbing when you say these types of workout metrics. Do you, like me, see Boston Scott as a high-end handcuff this year? Yes. Yes, I do see Boston Scott as a high-end handcuff this year behind Miles Sanders. I do like what Miles Sanders brings to the table, but Boston Scott is a handcuff that I would be grabbing. I'm not usually high in the handcuffs. The two that I have been grabbing, if possible, like I said, I messed up on that one league where I got sniped for Madison, but it's Madison and the other one is Boston Scott. Space Force. Space Ghost Force. Avoid Chenault, grab at value, reach, feel any type of way. Um, I don't know if I'm grabbing him at the value or if I'm really reaching or if I'm the guy setting the ADP up for him now. But I'm all over Chenault now. My boy Angelo from angeloanalysis.com. You guys should go check him out. He's got a free article up right now, and then if you like it, which you would, you should go check him out. Uh, oh, nice, nice. I'm liking that Angelo's coming up this season. He's the guy that actually peeped me on to Laviska Shenault. Uh, he's a great guy. And like I said, you guys should go check out his website. He's the guy, like I said. So I'm not really sure if I'm grabbing him at a value. I definitely don't think I'm grabbing him at a value. I'm probably actually the one setting the ADP with a bit of a reach. Uh, I I understand DJ Chark is a very very skilled wide receiver. I was actually grabbing him. See DJ Chark is the type of guy that I'd be buying. He had depressed rookie season. He had high draft capital. I believe he was drafted 53rd overall. He came from a Power 5 school out of LSU. He showed good production, good skill in LSU when he was there. So he was a guy that I was grabbing going into his sophomore season, understanding that all the signs pointed to him being the wide receiver one. You can come here, stay with me. Um, but he was also a guy that I sold last year after week 6 for a Rob in a first. I don't think he can sustain the wide receiver one style. I think Chenault's coming for it, and even if it's not this year that he comes for it, I think Chenault is a better weapon where you can deploy Chenault out of the backfield as a running back. You can put him in jet sweeps. You can put him on the slot. He can win inside and he can also win outside. Where DJ Chark, I don't. Well, let's just call a spade a spade. Like DJ Chark doesn't do all that stuff, right? Like he doesn't run out of the backfield like Chenault. Chenault's more of a running back playing wide receiver than anything else. Do I think Hollywood Brown will have a breakout season since he's fully healthy? Um, I can see why the Ravens are going to try to push it due to the draft capital, but I prefer Myles Boykin, as we talked about a little earlier. I don't think there's enough targets to go around with Andrews and Boykin and Brown, but I can see why the Ravens would be trying to invest, or sorry, trying to make sure that they don't look like they flopped on Hollywood with the first round pick. So I think he will get some targets. We'll see what he does with those targets, though. But I do think long term it's going to be Boykin. Between Chris Carson, David Johnson, Todd Gurley, and Le'Veon, who would you want as your RB2? Todd Gurley, absolutely. No doubt about it. You got health questions surrounding Chris Carson, the addition of Carlos Hyde, the first rounder, and Rashad Penny, the late breakout. Sorry, not the late breakout, but the late sleeper in DJ Dallas in Seattle. David Johnson, yeah, he got traded for just like Todd Gurley. Uh, I think the team though is better in Atlanta, and there's not really any threatening competition behind Todd Gurley. Le'Veon Bell, I'm just out on because Adam Gase, right? Like he didn't even really want Le'Veon Bell there to begin with. So and Todd Gurley's only 25, guys. So again, like if you're fading Todd Gurley because you think his knee is going to be a problem this year, okay, I understand it. But if you're fading Todd Gurley because you don't think he can become an RB1, then I think you're absolutely bananas. And so, Blank, you're talking. Turn that down, honey. You're talking about taking him as an RB2, then I see absolutely no problem with that. Why don't you go sit down on the bed then, real quick? Yeah. In Dynasty, is there such a heavy draft capital investment on players like Jerry Jeudy? Are you selling guys like Courtland Sutton? Um, no, I'm buying Courtland Sutton if the owner's panicking and I can get a discount on him. Like let's look at the facts here. He produced with um several quarterbacks last year, and he Courtland Sutton to me looks more like an alpha wide receiver than Jerry Jeudy. I do think they complement each other well, but like I said, if I'm getting a discount on Courtland Sutton, then absolutely I'm going to be taking it. He's another guy, and I'm not selling him, but he's another guy that I could see people panicking because of the Jerry Jeudy signing. Uh, Tate versus Slayton versus Shepard. Who's the best performing wide receiver for the Giants? I kind of touched on this a little bit when I said my favorite stacks. My second favorite owned stack was Daniel Jones and Darius Slayton. So I think Darius Slayton is the guy in that wide receiver room for the Giants. That's going to be the best performing. Sterling Shepard's had the opportunity already to become to take the threat, to take the bull by the horns. Just hasn't been able to do it. And Golden Tate seems to always be more of a typical complement receiver himself than a typical alpha. Like Slayton seems to be. So Slayton seems to be the guy. It's been nearly an hour or so. Going to end the questions here. Give them time to answer the remaining. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna hold on one second. Stop that. So I'm gonna answer the last question here, and that's sorry guys. How does Stefon Diggs affect John Brown? I think Stefon Diggs in year one affects John Brown by the sole fact of decreasing John Brown's ADP. So he's the guy I would, if I was tossing any darts in the Buffalo wide receiver room, that'd be getting because I typically don't um I typically don't really like to grab a wide receiver that's changed teams on year one. They typically struggle. Brandon Cook seems to be the exception to that. So there's a little Easter egg on the Houston wide receiver that I'm dropping an article on either tomorrow or the next day. So my problem with Stefon Diggs and really John Brown is the accuracy of Josh Allen, to be honest with you. So I'm afraid of with Stefon Diggs and the fact that wide receivers don't usually produce year one when they switch teams. So if I was taking a dart throw on either one of those guys, I'd be grabbing John Brown just because he has the familiarity with. Sorry, that came out kind of weird. With Josh Allen, but Stefon Diggs would be a 2021 target that I'd be targeting after like week maybe 5 or 6 if he has a bad start to the season this year, and I'd be trying to grab him cheap, and then just stashing him on my bench and waiting for 2021. So that's what I would be. That's what I'd be going for. So I want to thank you guys for coming out here. I really, really appreciate it for coming out and listening to just this Canadian guy. I want to thank Space Ghost Force. I want to thank the entire team here. If you guys did enjoy this, please let me know and let Space Ghost Force know, and we'll try to maybe set something up at a later date. Maybe get another one of these going. Thanks, guys.